I parted ways with my uterus last year. We'd reached an impasse, my uterus and I felt like I had no other choice. I'd explored all of our options, sought expert opinion, and finally concluded that my uterus had to go. Our relationship had long since peaked. We were past our prime. I should have seen the signs, but I suppose I was in denial. Our problems go way back to when I was still in my 30s, a time when I still desperately tried to fix things. I had us tested, poked, and prodded until finally my doctors gave me a confusing and frustrating diagnosis. I had a dysfunctional uterus. Still, we made a go of it, my uterus and I, but more than 10 years and one ablation surgery later, I finally decided to give up. I was in constant, intense pain and had reached a point where the word hysterectomy sounded pretty pleasant. Finally, I was ready to let go. And why not? I wasn't using it anymore. And I certainly didn't plan on using it again. My baby birthing days were over. I had 3 sons, 2 grown and 1 almost grown. I'd had them in my 20s. Now, in my 40s, I find fulfillment elsewhere. In my 40s, I thought I would be happy to let my uterus go. But as I was recovering from surgery, happy to be finally free of pain, I found myself startled by feelings of loss and longing. I could be teaching classes, grading papers, cooking dinner, when a vague but powerful source of mourning and sadness would sweep over me. I tried to brush these moments aside. I tried to dismiss them as irrational. After all, I told myself, my surgery had been medically necessary, and I was so much happier and healthier now that it was behind me. I reminded myself that I am an intelligent woman who does not define herself by her reproductive organs or lack thereof. But still, these feelings insisted on my attention. As any good English teacher seeking answers would, I turned to the printed word for an explanation of my seemingly irrational feelings. I found myself reading internet articles like the relationship between self-esteem and self-care agency in hysterectomy patients, and the narcissistic injury of middle age. These texts were decidedly unhelpful. One day, home alone and in the midst of a post-surgery sadness session, I turned to other more relevant texts, our family photo albums. As I sat for almost 2 hours looking at pictures of me and my babies, it struck me. I had been good at having babies, really good. And I had never felt so powerful, so united to a higher purpose as when I struggled to push them out of my body and give them life, or worked nervously to get them to latch on and nurse. I let myself get lost looking at pictures of their new pink skin, their rooting mouths, their tiny curling fingers. I indulged in over-the-top, supremely satisfying motherly nostalgia. As I dried my tears, I realized that I was not mourning the literal loss of my uterus. I was worried that the second half of my life would not offer me what the first half had. That feeling of purpose, of unity with the universe that giving birth had given to me. I look at my children now and know that we will never be as close as we were when I sustained and nourished them with my own body. My babies are men now. My oldest son moved out last year. My middle son has 1 foot out the door, and my youngest will soon get his driver's license. My irrational sadness about being separated from my uterus was simply masking a much more rational sadness about being the mother of adult children. My hysterectomy highlighted what I must have known all along, that since that first contraction, that first painful journey out of my body, my children have been moving away from my womb, from my arms, from our home. I know that this is the natural order of things, and believe me, I plan to fill life in my 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond with lots of fulfilling non-maternal things. But I'm also going to give myself permission to be occasionally startled by feelings of loss and longing, and to indulge in brief sentimental visits to my old photo albums where I will bask in the memories of my young motherhood. I might not miss my dysfunctional uterus, but I will always miss what we did together when we were young. We had some beautiful babies.